Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. We have an update in the case of Breonna Taylor. The city is going to be paying her family $12 million, and they are promising police reform as well. Her death was very tragic. They did say that this is one of the biggest payouts that the city has ever made, or one of the biggest settlements that the city has ever made. Now, this will not bring Breonna back. It will not bring her back, but the settlement, I believe, should happen. It should definitely happen, because these officers need to think before they react, especially when someone's life can be taken as a result of some type of mistake or error. Now, of course, I could talk about the settlement and the whole case, in which this has been in the news for quite some time now, okay? Quite some time this has been in the news. There has been a lot of protesting and just all kinds of activity surrounding this case and so many others, George Floyd and others before and after these cases. We had Ahmaud Arbery and just countless others. Now, what I wanted to talk about in this case, because we already know what's going on here. You all know the details of the story and how, how this was just a very tragic thing that happened, and how they've tried to smear her name and her reputation and all kinds of things. And so I'm one who likes to look into the comments and understand the mindset of people in this country. I think it's very important that we understand the mindset so that we don't fall asleep thinking that things are getting better or smoothing over, and that there is some type of ground being made, or we're gaining ground. No. We have to stay awake at all times. Never lose sight of reality. The reality is that we are in a land where our ancestors were captured and brought here against their will, and some heinous things happened to them, right? And we continue to see these things happen. These things haven't faded into the past. They continue to happen. And thus we are talking about Breonna Taylor today. So I think it's important that we understand the mindset of the kind of people who could do these sorts of things, right? So their ancestors are the ones who brought us here against our will. Of course, we already know. Some of you may not, but for those of you who do know, it was all prophesied. So there's no surprise here. We are understanding, we are fully aware of why these things are happening, because it was prophesied, okay? When we talk about these things, there is no shock, there's no surprise. We are just talking about these things because some of our people are not aware of what has taken place. They're not aware of our biblical history, and they are not aware of even our history here in this country. There are young people who have no clue as to how we got here and why we are here, okay? But anyway, what I wanted to talk about in reference to this story, when I first saw this early this morning, I saw it on AOL News, and so I peered down into the comments. And of course, there are a lot of foolish negative comments, because we are dealing with a reprobate nation. Okay? A lot of people who are not sorry for the things that have transpired here on this land, what they did to the Native Americans, what they did to us. They are not sorry. Okay? And of course, we know that that doesn't represent the whole population. Okay? We know that that's I can't even say a select few, because that would make it seem like it's only a handful, right? But there is a large portion of the population here in America that want to make America great again, and that for them means make it like it was when they had and owned slaves, you see. And so many of them still have a mindset towards so-called black people that is just treacherous. Just like I continue to say that the Bible prophesied that they would have this perpetual hatred that's going to burn in them forever. So just the mere sight of black people, for some of them, is enough for them to just boil over with rage, you see. But again, I like to make note and keep in mind that that's not all of them, okay? Some of you don't like to hear me say that, but this is what I feel the need to say, so I will say it, okay? Not everyone feels this way, just like every black person can't be trusted, you see. When you divide things completely by race, you end up getting burned, you see. And I'll talk about that because, you know, I did a video years ago, Enemies Come in Black and White, because we're always peering on the other side looking for the white enemy, but you forget that there's a black enemy who could do you just as bad, if not worse, than a white enemy. So you have to keep those things in mind. At some point, or should I say at some stages of our lives, we do have to treat people as individuals, whether in a good sense or a bad sense. Because if you just think automatically that every person that's black can be trusted, boy, oh boy, you will be in for a rude awakening. And if you just automatically think that every white person can't be trusted, then you just might get surprised. Many of us have had great experiences with Gentiles that we would never experience with our own people. And I have to say these things because when you live in this type of environment, you need to know who you can trust. When the Bible says never trust your enemy, don't think it was just talking about these other nations. We know that for a fact that it was talking about that, but he also gives us discernment to know who we can trust. But when it says never trust your enemies, it's also talking about the enemies within as well. Because how many of us have stories of where our own people have stabbed us in the back and turned the knife until it severed arteries on a spiritual level? Anyway, back to the story. As I read through some of the comments, you have those who are so infuriated that this family is getting such a large settlement that they can't help themselves but to say something ignorant in the comment section. And so in the comment section, one comment that stood out, of course there were many, but a comment that stood out is said that they should have held off on giving any type of monetary reward for this case until they completed a criminal background case against Breonna Taylor. And so I said to myself, you know the scenario of what happened here. You know, not the scenario, but the situation. We know what happened. This woman was asleep in her apartment, and they come in and take her life. And so there was nothing illegal about sleeping in your own apartment. I don't care if they went back and found out that this woman did A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. At the moment that they came in and took her life, she was doing nothing. And so for these people to think that if they find any blip of anything in her past, that should disqualify her family from getting a settlement for the wrongful death of their daughter. This shows you that we are dealing with reprobate thinkers, people who do not think clearly or fairly. Just the fact that a black family is going to get compensation, in which you cannot truly compensate someone's death, okay? You can't do that. But some sort of compensation is better than nothing. And so these people can't fathom or even wrap it around their brains that this family is going to get $12 million. It bothers them to the point where they have to say something so idiotic. What does Breonna Taylor's past have to do with how she lost her life? But see, this is how they make themselves feel better at night. This is why when they were fishing around in the Botham Shem case and trying to say, oh, we found marijuana in his apartment. And I'm like, okay, this is a country who has legalized marijuana in some states. And it's like these people have forgotten that. So it's legal if a white face is selling it. But if a black face is buying it, then it's not legal. Although we found out that they didn't find that in his place. And even in the case of Tatiana Jefferson, they were trying to smear her. And there were these Christian pastors who came forward and they said, you will not tarnish this young woman's name to try to get yourselves off on this case. There is a history of this. Why is it that we are expected to trust a system that has a history of trying to tarnish the name or the image of a victim so that they can sleep better at night, so that they can shift the blame off of themselves to the victim? How is that fair? But when you're dealing with a reprobate nation, they don't care about what's fair. This is why number 45, the president of this country right now, said that he doesn't have to understand. He doesn't even care to understand what black people have gone through at all. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to understand it. He said this because he is speaking to his base. He is speaking to those who feel the exact same way that he does. You see, his talking points are to get them riled up so that they can say, yeah, see, even our president doesn't like these insignificant darkies. Some of you don't understand why we talk about these things, even some of my black viewers. Some of you don't understand it. I've had some of you say things to me about why I cover racial issues. Well, if you get in the Bible and understand end times, you would understand why. For you, it's something that makes you uncomfortable because you may have friends that you don't want to feel uncomfortable around. Guess what? We have friends too. And we know how to separate our friends from the thoughts of the masses. You see, of course, you're going to find Gentiles or people of other races who don't feel the way that the majority feels. You're going to find that. You're going to have those that will love you and that will treat you better than some of your own people. You will have that. You see, but the point we are trying to make when we cover these stories is you have to understand the environment. You can't understand it from the perspective of those that you call friend or those that you know, those that you associate with. You have to understand it from the perspective of those who make policies, who can affect your life in a major way. Those who have a mindset that's being pumped up by number 45, who doesn't like our people. He is helping to stir up this environment, you see. And so you need to understand the mindset of people who continue to say that they want to do this, that, and the other. They want some type of, what do I want to call this? Civil war to happen. You have to understand the mindset of who we are dealing with, you see. Anyway, I'm done with the story. I just wanted to give an update and just come from the perspective of the comments that I was seeing and how they think that it's best to peer into Breonna Taylor's past. That's foolish thinking because, again, that has nothing to do with how she passed away. Nothing at all. But that is where they want to put the focus. I am done with this listing for real this time. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, like the video and share it. With that, be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.